Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 830B, and today's date is November 30th, 2015, and the title of this episode is The Race to a World War is On. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. We've talked about DHS, FBI, NSA, police departments, and many other agencies. They've been using a device called the Stingray. And basically it simulates a cell tower, intercepts your calls. It allows them to track people, their movements. And there's a federal judge in Illinois who has recently taken the unusual step of issuing 3 new stringent requirements for the government when it wants to deploy a cell site simulator. The move aims to protect the Fourth Amendment rights of innocent bystanders against unreasonable search and seizure. Of course, for now, this only applies to the Northern District of Illinois because it's a local judge there. But these new Stingray requirements come just about a month after the Department of Homeland Security imposed its own warrant requirement following a similar move by the Department of Justice. Because a lot of people were complaining about this, saying that they're just basically getting everyone's information and keeping it. Now, what's very interesting and surprising about all this, Judge Johnston's, his order is to compel government investigators to not only obtain a warrant, but also not to use them when there's an inordinate number of innocent third parties, where information will be collected, such as at a public sporting event. The first requirement runs counter to the FBI's previous claim that it can warrantlessly use stingrays in public places where no reasonable expectation of privacy is granted. Second, the judge requires that the government immediately destroy collateral data collection within 48 hours, and the judge wants proof that this was destroyed and they're not holding it anymore. Now, we know that these devices without a warrant are completely in violation of the Fourth Amendment, and we realize that everybody should take the necessary steps to protect their information, their data, their email, their text, their voicemails, their calls. And you can do this in so many different ways. Like on a computer, you can use Startpage, startpage.com. This will hide your search history. You can use their proxy service in startpage.com, which will hide your location. You can use encrypted email, which will basically mask your information because it will encrypt your information. You can use Block-It-Pocket, which is blockitpocket.com, which is a sleeve where you can slide your cell phone into. It is made up of material, and inside the material is silver and copper and other metals which blocks the signal to your phone. You can put your iPad in there. You can use the sleeves for your credit card, which has those new RFID chips in there, which will protect it from people walking by with scanners to steal your information. It will protect your driver's license so you can't be tracked once you get those real IDs, those new real IDs from DHS. It will block the signal to that RFID chip. And it's just something good to have. But everyone needs to take that step to say, you know something? You're not going to spy on us. We don't give you permission to have our information. And it's the same mentality as you lock up your house, your car, your belongings, your precious material in your home. You don't give the government your keys. You don't give them your combination. You don't give them a key fob so they can get into your car. No, you keep it locked and private. The same has to go with your information. And this way, they need a warrant to get that information. Now, out in Turkey, we understand that Erdogan decided to arrest journalists, and he arrested 2 Turkish prominent journalists. Then he arrested another journalist, the third one, because they were releasing information that they were basically smuggling weapons. They were smuggling mortar shells. They were basically smuggling oil into Turkey. And as every dictator does, they try to get rid of that information. And one way of getting rid of the people reporting on the information is to arrest those people. And we can see right now, as Putin continually gives more information about what is happening. Putin has already said that he has more information that, yes, Erdogan's son has been funneling the oil through Turkey from Syria and Iraq and selling it to other nations. And we can see that Erdogan is coming under a lot of pressure. Well, there's even more pressure for him because Reporters Without Borders, along with the Turkish Association of Journalists, is conducting a special press conference saying that these two men who were arrested, now a third, that they need to be released. Because this is not freedom of speech, freedom of the press. This is, oh, we don't like what you're saying and we're getting rid of you. And we can see France is doing the same thing, Turkey's doing the same thing, Spain is doing the same thing. This is going to spread across Europe and into the United States. It already has, but what's going to happen is we're going to see more of this as time goes on. Now, out in Afghanistan, there are warnings all over the place about an imminent attack in the next 2 days. And the United States is warning its citizens in Kabul, saying that, yes, within the next 2 days, we're going to see a renewed official efforts to revive stalled peace talks with Taliban. And we're saying that something could happen in this area. And of course, as we can see, most of the time, 99.999% of the time, it is the U.S. government that gins all of this up. And we'll have to watch this situation very carefully to see what false flag event does occur in this area. Why do they need this? Well, as we've always said in Afghanistan, they're never leaving this area. And at this point, it looks like they're pushing to bring more troops in there because we know Afghanistan is in a strategic location. We know Russia and China are in this country. We know there's a huge lithium deposit, copper deposit, oil. There's a pipeline that runs right through Afghanistan. And we can't forget about the poppy fields, which they use to sell opium across the world to pay for their covert operations like the Islamic State, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, and any Al-Qaeda and any other terrorist organization. Now, out in Ukraine, we understand that Crimea, they are still without power, and we're seeing it's taking a very long time for the power to be brought back up. Now, of course, Ukraine is saying, well, we have activists, they're not letting us in to repair, and it looks like right now Kiev, they're hoping to squeeze concessions out from Russia. And they're dragging this on to see what they can get out of Russia in regards to Ukraine itself. And they're putting pressure on Russia to say, listen, you want the power on? This is what you're going to have to do. But in the meantime, what we're seeing is that Kiev has completely open-fired on the Donetsk and Lugansk area. They damaged gas pipelines in this area. And what we're seeing at this point is they are getting ready for a major offensive. Ukrainian armed forces over the past week have redeployed to the contact line about 277 tanks and heavy artillery pieces. The Ukrainian armed forces have concentrated about 111 artillery pieces, which include self-propelled artillery weapons, the BM-21 Grad multiple launch rockets, the D-30 systems, 166 tanks, 147 infantry fighting vehicles. And this is including the Ukrainian extremist organization, the Right Sector, the fully trained armed forces, and it looks like they are preparing and getting ready to make a major offensive in the southeastern location, and I wouldn't be surprised into Crimea. And this is why they shut the power down in Crimea. But we're going to have to see how this plays out. But it's starting to look like this, and we have to understand the Minsk II ceasefire agreement expires the end of this year. And since this time, all throughout this year, we have seen a huge buildup, training, equipment, all being readied for a major offensive. Now, Russia decided they are going to ban Soros Foundation because they're saying they are a threat to national security and the constitutional order in the country. And basically, the prosecutor said the activities of the Open Society Institute and the Open Society Institute Assistance Foundation were a threat to Russia. Well, this is what Soros does. He creates these NGOs, places them in each of these countries, funds them, and uses them to overthrow governments. They added that the Justice Ministry would be duly informed about these conclusions and would add the two groups to Russia's list of undesirable foreign organizations. And right now, all the assets are frozen in Russia. Soros completely kicked out. So whatever he had planned, Russia has put the kibosh on that. Now, out in Libya, we understand that the United States government central bankers, they've been airlifting the Islamic State out of Syria because we know Russia has been just basically destroying the proxy army there, and they've been airlifting the proxy army, the Islamic State, into Libya and into Yemen. And now we're getting stories that the Islamic State are advancing with heavy weapons and tanks east of Sirte in Libya. And we can see right now, as Russia pushes the Islamic State out of Syria, the United States steps in and now is going to be making its move into Libya and setting that all up because the terrorist group is looking to Libya to set up a backup base and its base of operations because they're being removed from Syria, and their base of operation was Raqqa, and it looks like right now Russia has been driving them out of there. The Syrian army has been pushing forward, and now it looks like the United States is moving the proxy army out of that area. But what's very interesting is that the Islamic State, as they're moving into Libya, they are now only 400 miles away from the Italian island of Sicily. And remember, Italy didn't want to be involved in Syria. And I wouldn't be surprised if something occurs in Italy or some type of event happens to bring them into the fold. Because you have to remember, their plan right now is to create chaos and to bring Europe together to fight in Syria against Assad. This has been their plan right now since the Islamic State has been basically destroyed by Russia. Now, there's a lot of information coming out about the downed Su-24. Turkey has been providing no evidence whatsoever. Russia provided a radar proof that the Su-24 was not in the airspace of Turkey. Paul Craig Roberts did a calculation saying the plane would have been flown at stall speed. And we're starting to see that all of the information coming out of Turkey, which basically is orchestrated by the United States government to have this plane shot down, we're realizing that the information is fake, phony, and false. And remember when Turkey came out with the recording that they said, yes, the information was relayed to the Russian jet, 10, 17 times or whatever within that 17 or 10-second time span, whatever it is, which is kind of impossible. And of course, it was done in English, which makes no sense. Well, we're getting information that the agreed frequency to give warnings wasn't used. We're also getting information about that recording that Turkey says they have. They will not hand that over to Russia, because if they do hand it over to Russia, they will analyze it and they will find out that it's a complete fake. This is why they're not handing it over whatsoever. Now, the U.S. is out there and they're continually trying to convince the world that they're attacking the convoy of oil trucks. And what we're learning is they're really not hitting anything at this point. They're sending down leaflets to the oil truck drivers, telling them to get out of the trucks while they bomb a couple of them, making it look like they're bombing them, and then they're giving a lot of excuses like they ran out of ammunition, or they're not going to hit the oil convoy because there's civilians around the area. When did the U.S. ever care about the civilians? I mean, look at the hospital in Afghanistan. I mean, a banner on top of the roof, GPS location, radio saying we are a hospital, there's no combatants here. Nothing. Look at the proxy army in Yemen. Saudi Arabia has hit over 100 hospitals. They're hitting civilians in Syria, taking out the powered infrastructure, taking out grain silos, hitting the people, civilians in that area. This is all an excuse so they don't have to bomb their cash cow convoy. That's it. This is why they're not bombing it whatsoever. Now, the EU is going to pay Turkey 3 billion euros to cut off the refugee outflow. But not every country wants to pay up. And they're saying that the EU and Turkey, they reached a deal. They want, Erdogan wants 3 billion euros, and he will stop the flood of refugees. So right off the bat, you can tell already, this was completely planned. To get Europe together, to create this chaos, to put up the borders, to say this is ruining our economies, this is ruining what we have here, this has to stop, we need to go into Syria. This was part of the plan. And we see right now Turkey was basically looked at to be a member of the EU. Now we know they're part of NATO, and NATO's saying, maybe we'll be dropping them, I don't know. But Turkey, from this agreement, is also saying, listen, to have this refugee problem taken care of, we would like to be part of the EU. And the EU is agreeing to open up a new chapter in Turkey's stalled bid for membership. Now remember what we talked about before about an EU army, where they're putting together all the different EU countries to create an EU army because NATO is a relic. And if they can get Turkey into this, and they can accelerate the membership, basically what they're going to do is then invade Syria. And it seems like they're headed in this direction. And because of the shoot down of the Su-24 by Turkey, what do we see? Well, we see Russia now is going to be arming the Su-34 bombers, jets with air-to-air missiles. So what we're seeing is air-to-air missiles now going to be on these jets, the Su-34s. This way they can hit any target that approaches them that is a threat. This is why they have their destroyer out out at sea. This is why they brought in the S-400 missile system to set up a no-fly zone in the area. They're taking precautions, and it seems that this might be the plan of the United States government central bankers. Russia might have fallen into this trap in doing what they actually wanted. Because what we're seeing is all the EU countries are trying to convince their governmental powers that we need to go into Syria at this time. David Cameron is basically saying, listen, he will get the ISIS leader if you allow us and you vote, if the MPs vote to support the airstrikes in Syria. The ISIS leader, who is the mastermind of the Paris bombing, is on the top of his hit list. Now, you know this is all rhetoric. You know this is not what he's going to do, but he's doing whatever he possibly can to get the votes. U.S. senators here in the United States, John McCain and Lindsey Graham, is saying that we need 20,000 troops for Syria and Iraq. Remember, we need 30,000 troops to basically create a safe zone and invade Syria. This is what they're trying to do right now. Germany is saying that they could deploy 1,200 soldiers to Syria. They're not going to be bombing inside of Syria because there's no need for it, because the Islamic State is being pushed out. So it doesn't even make sense for them to bring in their bombers, except to bomb Assad. But they don't want to make it look like this, so they'll bring in the troops. So we see the European nations getting together right now, getting ready to move into Syria. Obama, he signed the defense bill authorizing $500 million more aid to the moderate Syrian rebels. And of course, he did this on the eve of Thanksgiving. And right now, we are seeing that aid is going to Ukraine, aid is going to the moderate Syrian rebels, which is really the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and the other terrorist groups. And they're getting ready for a major push. Now, we see there's been sanctions on Turkey, and Erdogan might close the Bosphorus, and that is the area between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, and it allows them for ships to go back and forth. And remember, non-state sponsored warships can only stay 21 days in the Black Sea. Crimea is part of Russia. They are state-sponsored, so it doesn't pertain to them. And they cannot block the Bosphorus during peacetime. Turkey is obligated to allow naval warships safe passage regardless of what flag they fly. However, in times of war, they can control who goes in and out. Now, Russia is supplying Latakia, Syria, through this. If Turkey decides to cut it off, supplies will stop. And we're going to have to watch that very, very carefully to see what happens. So from all of this that's been happening, let's just review some things here. Refugees were released from Turkey into Europe to create chaos. Europe decided, instead of having these open borders, which was the Schengen Agreement, they're going to set up fences and close the borders. Then we had a terrorist attack in Paris. This was to bring Europe together and basically have Europe go into Syria and unite Europe. Then we had the shoot down of the Russian jet by Turkey, which allows Turkey to be in the hot seat right now and allow Turkey to control what is going on in the Bosphorus and allow Turkey to basically make deals with the European nations to become an EU member. And we have to remember, the other agenda was there's going to be a pipeline through Turkey from Russia. And with this agenda, this pipeline could be canceled because this is part of the agenda to separate from Russia. And Turkey and Russia were working on economic and military deals. So it looks like by doing this, they can create their EU army. And they can set up this buffer zone by bringing in the number of troops they need along the Turkish border. And this is why they're saying they're going to be closing this off, because they'll be setting up a safe zone. And they're going to need the amount of troops on the border to maintain this. They have Russia now arming their jets with air-to-air missiles. All they need to do at this point is create some type of incident where Russia uses one of their missiles. And this could be the pretext to invade Syria and start the war. And they need to do all of this by October of 2016, when the yuan becomes the reserve currency included in the SDR basket, where things will really accelerate. So we're looking at a time period from now until October of 2016, where we're really going to see everything accelerate and move forward, because the race to war is on right now. And to make things even worse, the United States is going to send special foreign fighter surge teams overseas to prevent terrorists from traveling. The Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and U.S. intelligence community elements will deploy foreign fighter surge teams to work with countries to counter terrorist travel. So they're already placing special units around the world. All of this is being done and prepped for the next war, for the next event to bring us into war. And we see that all the pieces right now are coming together, and things are moving much faster than before, and it will accelerate. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.